Welcome everyone to another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today we have returning author Andrew Allen Smith joining us again. Andrew, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course, you can come back as many times as you write books. We always want to have you back. Andrew is a West Michigan author with a passion for life. As an author, he has explored multiple genres and feels at home with each of them. His first book was a collection of poetry, which has recently become more popular, while his action-adventure series, The Masterson Files, has also achieved popular success, having earned 5-star Readers' Favorites awards. In 2021, Andrew released his first nonfiction book that was not a textbook or a validation document with What Not to Say to People Who Are Grieving. He wrote that book with his sister. That book reached number 47 on Amazon in the death and grieving category, which I think is a remarkable thing to be under 100. Congratulations. That was
Would have been nice to be number one.
Well, but this is a really difficult category, and you guys knocked it out of the park. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's lots of them.
And it's a really powerful book, too. We'll have you come back and read from it on a different day.
Sounds fun.
Andrew continues to write and is currently focused on multiple projects, including his continuation of the Masterson Files, which is what he'll read from tonight. He's also working on a new series called The Eternal Forever and a series of anthologies, including the recently released Yet Another Slice of Fear. If you haven't gotten into those, they're super fun. Andrew has also had multiple short stories and flash fiction entries included in several other publications. Not least of which, Andrew writes daily in his blog 29000sunsets.com with uplifting statements or original poetry to say something positive to the world. I love your blog. I use it every day to start my morning with my morning cup of cocoa. It just sets my brain on the right path every morning. So I appreciate you doing that.
It goes good with cocoa. I like that.
It does go good with cocoa. Today, you're going to read from Vengeful, which is book 1 in the Masterson Files series. Rather than me reading the synopsis, which is always dull and boring to hear me read that, can you tell us a little bit about the story and where you got the idea for it?
It's a good question. The actual idea came from a series of dreams about an assassin who just wanted to get away from it all. And I looked at a lot of different books. I read a lot of Clive Cussler and Patterson and Balducci. I read all of these, and usually the main characters are a little bit different. But in this, I was thinking of a character that was a tragic hero, anti-hero that had reason for what he did and had a conflicted past on his own. So I start the book with an assassin who is lining up for a shot and realizes that he's made a mistake by taking that particular shot and changes his target at the last moment, which changes his life and forces him into retirement. With that being said, a lot starts to come out as the series progresses into what pushed him into that and his own moral code of why he does things the way he does. He is still a brutal assassin. He is still very capable, but at the same time, he has another side that is kind and loving. And at the center of all of this is a terrific love story between him and his partner, Abby. So they enjoy things very well. And it has a lot of very nifty twists and turns.
This is an awesome book, I think, for everyone, because I know I'm being stereotypical here, but for men, you have the action and the adventure and the military espionage. And for women, you have this really tender love story. And it really is, I think, a book for readers of every place in life, every social structure. There's a lot of really great things tucked into this story. So I really appreciate you writing.
And there's a lot of really good characters. One of them that I found as I was developing it is these characters took on a life of their own. They're very unique characters. They're not reused, and each of them has a very special place inside of the story that makes them actually take on the challenges that are thrown in front of them, whether it be our main character Michael, who has to protect a group of people that he didn't even want to be involved with, or it be the team following him with Alex and Jim, who really didn't want to do all this and were trapped in a very difficult situation. And I don't want to ruin the story, but if you pay attention, you might know what happens, but I might fool you in the end anyway.
Yeah, I got fooled. Um, so what I love about this, and I'm just going to say this, and we'll get into the story. But what I love about it is that each one of your characters has their very own personal, specific story goal, and yet they are all intertwined.
And
And I love that you wrote those layers into this group of characters because it makes them so much more interesting to read.
They took on a life of their own, as I said, and in taking on that life, I spent some time developing a backstory, whether it's with Jim, the reluctant ex-army veteran who just wants to eat hamburgers and have
Yeah,
fun,
yeah,
or whether it's Jay, the pilot who has a story about every bar on the face of the planet and loves Scotland and decorated his plane as such. So there's a lot to it.
yeah.
And each of them have their own very, very unique background, but they're very, very intertwined with each other.
Yeah, it's very cool story layering that you did. I was really impressed. As I'm reading through the series, it just keeps getting better and better. So I appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to sharing your story with our listeners. So if you will please take the microphone and read aloud for us.
Well, I am going to actually go to a strange place and not talk about Michael. I am going to go to chapter 26 and start where Jim and Alex have arrived at a army base, and Jim has been challenged to a bout. So Jim woke at 4:30 a.m. with a start. Alex was still asleep, and Jim wondered just how bad his day had been. In spite of his short sleep, he decided quickly that it would be fun to see just how out of practice he was and get some jabs in on Rachel. He walked to the door and opened it to the hall as two young guards jumped up to attention. Hey, can one of the two of you get me some PT clothes really quick? About a 2XL, please. I got shoes, but nothing else, Jim said. The young redheaded soldier looked at him. You aren't really going to mess with Rachel, are you? He spoke incredulously. Well, that would be a goal, but I just need to stretch out a bit, Jim smiled. Damn, are you stupid? The redhead looked on. She's a third-degree black belt in something. I had to spar her once, and she took me down so fast I fainted. Jim put his arm on the boy's shoulder. Of course you did, he said with a smile. That's why you can get me a PT uniform really quick, and we can go work out. Jim walked back into the room, and Alex said, You really are a glutton for punishment, aren't you? Why, yes, Sleeping Beauty, he laughed. Want to come out and watch me get my ass kicked by a girl? Why not, Alex said, stretching up. But you best not be overconfident. I was yesterday and had my ass handed to me. Ouch, said Jim. And here I thought everyone would want a piece of ass. It's just bad when it's yours. Cute, Alex said, really cute. We have 20 minutes, Jim smiled. That little E1 better not make me late. As always, begging for it, Alex took 3 deep breaths and got up. A moment later, there was a knock on the door, and the red-headed private walked in with a bag. I got you what I could from supply. I didn't know how to charge it to the corporal, so he may be on my ass. Jim broke in. She will be on my ass first. We'll deal with it. He quickly slipped down to briefs. He was a big man with a bit of a belly and a huge tree trunk arms and legs. With his size, Jim looked like a bear without all the hair. It would be easy to imagine him as Fuzzy Wuzzy in the old kids song if he wasn't grinning nearly all the time. He quickly put on the shorts and a standard issue t-shirt and sat down to put his Nikes back on. Jim jumped up and said, "Time to go. Let's move it. Little Sergeant, get your butt moving." Alex was moving slowly, still sore from the previous day's events and less than fully rested. It didn't matter, though. He was a ranger, and there were none better, period. He pushed through and was walking out the door with Jim. A brief walk outside, and they were at the depot gym. As they walked in, the bright lights illuminated a small group of people warming up. "She has several warm up with her every morning," the red-haired guard said. "We can go back in the barracks if you like." Jim looked at him. "You go ahead. Get your teddy bear while you're at it," he smiled. Alex laughed. "About time you laughed," Jim said. "I thought I was getting rusty." "Hey, little guy," a commanding woman's voice came. "Welcome to my place." Jim smiled and simply said, "Howdy," as he saw Rachel with red sparring gloves and headgear walking onto a large mat. Several men were dressed in their headgear and gloves as well, but theirs were dark blue. Only the corporal sported red gear. The gloves allowed some movement, but softened the punch. He looked and saw they had feet pads as well. Apparently it was going to be fun. "Johnson," she said in a commanding tone, as a tall but lanky man straightened to attention automatically, "strip off that gear and give it to the little guy." Johnson was overly ready to give up the gear and did so quickly and efficiently, while Jim, as quickly and efficiently, took it from him. Johnson apparently was wanting to be out of the gear as much as Jim wanted to be in it. Jim stripped off his shoes as well and put on the foot covers that would allow him for some serious kicks. As he did so, Rachel looked at him and smiled. "You really think you can use those with that belly?" Jim smiled. "No, but I don't know if I can dance yet, so I don't want you to step on my toesies." Jim walked onto the mat, stretching as he did. The sparring area was set up to be about 40 feet by 40 feet, and Jim circled slightly as he walked slowly in towards the center of the ring. Rachel circled as well. Her size was deceiving, as anyone could see she moved like a panther while she kept her eyes focused on Jim. Alex looked on from the side and wondered how this would go. He had not kept up with Jim as he should have, but in the past, Jim was top-notch. Now he was older and would put on a little weight, but Alex knew the muscle memory and skill didn't fade easily. As Alex looked around the room, he surveyed the group of soldiers who shuffled in anticipation. It seemed the hope was there that they would not have to be next in whatever was to come. The circle tightened. Jim smiled at Rachel. She smiled back with one of those smiles you see a person make when they know they're in control. Jim's smile changed to a smirk as he knew her overconfidence was immense. As Jim was within a few feet, Rachel fired a punch straight at him, at which Jim simply pivoted his body slightly and it passed by. Rachel's pullback was followed by a rapid twist of her body as her arm outstretched long, and she tried to backhand him, only to land on air as he again moved out of the way. She pulled back. "Not quite as slow as I thought you would be, little guy. All the better." 3 fast punches landed on air again, and as the third came towards him, Jim brought his arm down and carried her momentum forward, knocking Rachel off balance. She stumbled, and he used the stumble to spin her slightly like Baryshnikov would have in a ballet. Rachel turned and was slightly red. She slowed herself, quiet now, her overconfidence gone. 3 rapid round kicks and all misses. But she followed with a punch that caught Jim in the side of the shoulder. Jim stepped back, brushed his shoulder, and looked at Rachel. "Love tap," he said. "I'm flattered." The verbal jab made Rachel's brow furrow. Moving forward, she fired a sidearm swing. Jim blocked it instead of letting it pass this time and stepped into her. With her arm outstretched, he pinned her other arm between them, pulling her close, and lifted her off the ground, all in a fraction of a moment. She struggled and was obviously muscular, but Jim kissed her on the cheek and in a quick motion pushed her away. The men in the room were now clapping, as no one had ever been able to deal with the corporal like this. Alex watched and smiled as his old friend did what he used to do best. Rachel was seriously red now and excited. Her face seemed to seethe like a volcano and ready to erupt. Somewhere in that kiss on the cheek, she had lost control, and she wanted, and now she jumped on her toes and worked her way back to him. Her face was now covered with grim determination. In a rapid move, she grabbed Jim's arm and twisted it behind him. Jim seemed to be in trouble. She pushed him in an armbar towards the ground, but at the last moment, Jim twisted back facing her, his strength obviously more than she had anticipated, and she fell forward on him. Not in control anymore, he held her arms, and she could not balance as they rolled to the ground. Jim shifted and used the momentum to push her all the way over while he rode the makeshift somersault. When he landed, he was on top of her, straddling her chest with her arms pinned under his knees. Give up? He asked her. The men were laughing now and clapping again, and Alex was suitably impressed. Hell no, she huffed. Jim smiled at her and said, well, I guess I do. Jim rolled off her and was on his feet in a twist kip in a second. You were just too good for me, he laughed as he stripped off the gear from his hands and feet. Get your ass back here, Rachel said with her face red. Jim laughed. No, you win, he said with his back to her. He giggled as he walked out the door with Alex and the two guards that had come with him. The red-headed guard ran behind, bringing Jim's shoes to him. That was fun, Jim said as he turned and blew a kiss to the now red-faced corporal he had left on the mat. Alex looked at Jim as they were leaving and shook his head. The large door closed behind them as they walked into the morning air.
Very fun. Yay.
Hey.
Thank you so much. That's so much fun. It really is a great book. And this is such a fabulous place to start the story through to the next series of books. You have 5 in the series now?
5 in the series and a 6th, all but finished. It's finished. It needs to be finished. So,
okay. When do you anticipate the 6th book might be out?
When I send it to my waiting editor and let them take a good look at it.
Fair enough. Where did you get the idea for Jim's character? He's, I think, a really curious person, and he has some really interesting strengths. Where did you pattern these characters off of people you know, or are these just sheer imagination?
Partially, most of it is sheer imagination, but Jim's character was based a little on my sensei, William, from years and years ago, who looked very innocuous. He was very easygoing, but he wasn't, and he was very calm. And it was years later that I saw several martial arts shows with Sato, a heavier martial artist, and I thought, that's a good idea. That being said, none of them had the quippy craziness and the constant jabs that Jim does vocally as well. And I thought it would be cool to have a character whose tongue was as talented as his martial arts.
Yeah,
So
he's a snarky, fun guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you came back to read for us again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program, and I know that there are more books in this series, and then you have The Eternal Forever coming out with the 2nd book in that series shortly to be released. Yet another slice of fear. Your horror series is do you see a 4th book in that series happening?
There'll be a 4th book. It's already, every once in a while I just get an idea and I go ahead and complete a short story and I put it in a folder of short stories that eventually becomes a book. And likely the 2nd book of poetry will be out about the same time, because I have been working on another slice of passion as well. I have written several poems that have ended up on 29,000 Sunsets and in other places, and those have slowly added to the pages of another slice of passion. And so there'll be 2 books of poetry sometime in the near future.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And again, I highly recommend everybody check out your blog at 29000sunsets.com. It's really an uplifting, tremendous boost to my day every day. And I appreciate you for writing it.
Super.
Have an awesome day, and I hope to see you come back again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.